Hi, everyone. So very pleased to be with you now from COP26. It really is pretty stressful here, everybody. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people who are very, very worried about what's happening with our planet and about humanity's place on it. We're here doing everything we can to try and put it right. We're outside the media center currently at the moment, and we're going to be interviewing some fantastic authors and scientists in the media center, and you'll be watching that as we go on. But prior to starting that, Scientist Warning has now been here for the whole of the 3 days. I'm Ed Gemmell, the Managing Director of Scientist Warning Europe, and we've been working with a number of the world's top scientists and other experts to bring out a latest paper, the World Scientists Warning into Action, which is a paper which is designed to talk about all of the things that the IPCC is not talking about, but effectively relying on most of the same data. And we're unfettered by any governmental interaction or control of the paper. So you really get exactly scientists and experts telling it as it is. We're also, within the paper, trying to bring out actions for leaders at all levels. And that's from community levels, parish, all the way up through regional, national and international, and here at COP. So we've got a lot going on. We're trying to get a lot of things done. And while we're doing that, I am rushing off now to prepare for our entry into the media center. So I wonder whether I might just hand over to somebody else. Daphne, maybe you'd like to informally introduce yourself just for a minute or two, and then we'll be formally doing it later. All the best.
Am I looking at that camera? Okay.
Right.
Hi, my name is Daphne Weisham, and I'm the CEO of Methane Action. And you can find out more about our organization at our website, which is methaneaction.org. We are part of the Scientist Warning International paper, because methane levels are spiking astronomically. They're actually rising faster than CO2 in the atmosphere. And methane is about 84 times more potent than CO2 on a 20-year time scale. So this is very troubling. Methane levels are now 2.6 times higher than they were pre-industrially. That's the highest it's been in 800,000 years. So our group of scientists is right now working to try to bring to the public's attention the potential for methane removal in addition to methane emissions reductions. So methane emissions reductions were the topic over the last few days. We're going to be talking about that soon. Methane emissions reductions are absolutely critical as a first step. However, what's been pledged at the international level by 100 plus countries is 30% reductions below 2020 levels by 2030. And the UN actually says we need to cut by 45% below 2020 levels by 2030, which is a 50% higher cut than what's on the table right now and being pledged by 100 plus countries. So not only do we need to enhance our ambition in terms of reducing methane emissions all over the globe, we also need to begin scaling up some very promising technology which could allow us to avoid a 0.5 degrees Celsius rise in temperature. And that's why I'm here oh, where am I supposed to be looking? Looking right there. Okay, that's why I'm here in Glasgow. That's why I'm here in Glasgow, and that's why I'm standing in front of this camera. So I'll hand it over to you. Okay. 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 Great.
I usually get involved with Ed, you see. So.
Sorry?
I usually get involved with Ed, so but that's
okay. Okay.
Can we meet with Peter and Peter?
I'm on camera right now. And let's see, where was I? So in terms of the number one source of methane emissions globally, right now it's Russia. But of course, the U.S. is potentially, we don't know yet. We're getting methane satellites up that will help us observe exactly where the largest sources of methane releases are. But
methane satellites?
Yeah, satellites to actually detect methane releases on the globe, because right now it's an invisible gas and it's very difficult to pinpoint where the methane is coming from. And of course, the fossil fuel industry is not going to announce to the world, oh, look, here's a big methane leak over here. nor are large agricultural producers of methane. For example, giant corporate animal feed operations. They may also be big sources of methane. In fact, globally, agriculture is actually a bigger source of methane than the fossil fuel sector. So we need to be monitoring these. Cattle, ruminants in general, rice paddies. Now that's considered a survival emission. There are ways of mitigating methane from rice paddies by adding iron sulfates. You can actually make the rice more nutritious. Deal with anemia, which is a big problem for women and children in the developing world, and suppress methane releases from rice paddies. But that's sort of down the list of priorities. Right now, we really need to be focused on big ag and the fossil fuel industry and tamping down their emissions while also scaling up methane removal. Because the problem is, as the planet warms, methane is being released from biogenic sources, from natural sources like wetlands, like the permafrost. And we're going to be talking about that, I gather, later.
Are you joining Ed in a minute?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Right. Well,
So
maybe I should
get going and head in there because.
Well, you can do that. I'll cross that over to me.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Well, there you go, everybody. Well, now I can hear myself on my headphones. Right. Hope you're all enjoying that. I hope you're getting a little rundown and everything on how that all works about the methane. I didn't know about that methane session. Oh, Ed's here as well. Ed's got to quickly jump back on. Yeah, you got time for it. 7 minutes before you go live. Okay. In there. That's what I was going to say. Don't. I'll pan this out. You get yourself in there.
That's fine. Okay.
Well, I'll come back and grab the camera and put you on.
Good. All right.
There you go. I love live streams.
This is hot.
Well, there you go, people. Hopefully you're getting keeping up with the COP26 stuff. Hopefully you can hear me as well, because when I've got these on, I can't always hear myself, which is probably good. I will find out whether Ed likes cheese for you later. I'll get him to reply, obviously. And obviously, when they come out from the COP press conference. So I just bear with me. I'm just making sure. I've got to wait for the link to appear in a certain place. And when it does, I can click on it, and then I can put us live as well, which is all great. Thank you all for joining. Really good. Thank you, Soul Train Stan. Let me know that you can hear us or hear me. We are based just around the corner from the media room where it's going to be. Behind me it looks like, if any of you in Milton Keynes, it looks like loads of people going shopping. It's kind of like that. Back there is some wonderful exhibits, as in country selling whatever they're selling, or how they're going to improve climate with certain technologies. There's a lot of stuff going on here at the COP. There's we might be coming to you from the Action Centre. We might even try and do that maybe tomorrow. There's loads of ideas we're coming out with, but don't have. I can only stay here for another day or two, and then I do have to go back with other commitments. Right, let me just quickly check to make sure they don't go live without us, as they say. No. Will is going to pop back. That was helps out Ed a lot. And he's going to take the camera and probably take it into the... here he is. Just talk of the devil, it's sure to appear. Hello, Ed. Will. Are we live? We are live. Are you going to take the camera in? I'm going to take it through now, yes. There's the microphone, there's the camera. I'll tell you what, dear. We'll follow Will as he, takes this wonderful camera through. There you go. Right, so he's going to be behind the camera, so he's shooting off. There we go. Oh, he's been sneaked in there. Oh, right, hang on. There we go. Oh, let's put it. There we go. There we go. Get it sneaked in. So there's the room. That's where they do everything from. This is where the press conference is. So they're just getting ready. They still haven't put live the video, I think. Love live stuff. Love live. How are you finding? Are you been following anything else on the COP 26 website or anything? Do keep us updated. Hopefully you like that. This is all going to happen. This is behind the scenes stuff. This is what you don't see, do you? This is when they go live. Now, I wonder if we'll turn around. They've got some huge big cameras there as well at the back, which is quite good fun for us techies. Fahim has been eating cheese. There seems to be something about cheese at the moment. There we go. So, right, cameras at the back of the room. Right, let's just see if they're going live. They're still not put the link up. So what we're going to do is they're going to swap to this link there. Go to the cameras that are all in there. But we do have, obviously, the camera in there as well, our own one. So hopefully you'll enjoy all this, everybody. And still says that camera. I've got 3 minutes in here. So any questions? So what was it? Fahim, let's just put this up. Does Ed like cauliflower? All right, we'll find out for you, mate. But no, Mr. FBL, I have not been keeping it up to date, but I've been playing with wasps. Thanks, Fahim. And also, Soul Train, thank you so much for letting me know that you can actually hear me when I'm talking on this. Just the things we've been playing with. It's all cool. Now we can see Ed, the couple of guests are with him. They're all sat down now, getting ready to go. I'm sure Will be popping down there as well. Hopefully everything picks up nicely. Is there anything affecting all of you who are watching this climate change on COP26, or maybe not watching COP26 only because it's Ed and FBL that you're kind of interested in? What is annoying you about climate change? How do you want things to change? Let Ed know. Something down in the comments, and we'll catch up with that a little bit later, and maybe once we have the chat after the press conference. Find out what they want to say. And they'll obviously have some other scientists with them who might know the answers to the questions. So let's just see if that link is fun. No, they don't leave much time, do they? These links. We'll be live in 1 minute. 2 minutes on mine. It always seems weird. When you start to see, obviously, these sort of press conferences, this is what they've got to do. They only get like 15 minutes to actually get themselves ready. If not less. As you can see, Ed just had to shoot off for like 7 minutes. And I'm like, just go and do it. Ed is in the middle there. That's the question. Where is Ed? He's in the middle. You can see him there. We should be panning across quickly to the... Still not got that link live. Give me a sec, people. So yeah, I wanted to do this for Ed. I was saying, let's people see you actually getting yourself ready, have a little chat at the start and also at the end. Let's do something a little bit different than just there's a press conference and let's do something. So hopefully you don't mind me being here and chatting away. Just wait. He will be there.
And it's not going to interfere with the other one. And do we hand it around? If I'm standing only. Otherwise, it's fine. Okay, so I don't need to hand it around unless you want to stand.
I thought it was live then. Thanks, Fahim. It's right, isn't it, Fahim? There we go. We're ready. Here we go. Give me 1 sec. And then we'll be going over to the live press conference.
Our partners, so that's Sustainable Population Australia. Developing our program here at COP26. I'm Ed Gemmell, I'm the Managing Director of Scientists Warning Europe, and I'm joined by 2 esteemed guests. I have with me Daphne Wisham, CEO of Methane Action, and also an author of the new paper that we're going to be talking about today. And then Professor Peter Wadhams, an Arctic ice expert and a member of the core team at Scientists Warning Europe. We're here now to launch as far as COP is. It's Scientists Warning Europe would like to thank you all for coming, and actually immediately to thank all of our partners. So that's Sustainable Population Australia, the Interfaith Centre for Sustainable Development, the International Society for Ecological Economics, Facing Future Earth, and the Tzu Chi Foundation, who've all been cooperating with us on developing our programme here at COP26. I'm Ed Gemmell, I'm the Managing Director of Scientists Warning Europe, and I'm joined by two esteemed guests, and I have with me Daphne Wisham, CEO of Methane Action, and also an author of the new paper that we're going to be talking about today, and then Professor Peter Wadhams, Arctic ice expert and a member of the core team at Scientists Warning Europe. We're here now to launch, as far as COP is concerned, the new paper, The World Scientists Warning into Action, and we're launching it now, and it comes from a long line of scientists' warnings that have been issued by multiple scientists, and in some cases, tens of thousands. The history really is that back in 1992, sponsored by the Union of Concerned Scientists, the first scientists' warning to humanity was issued. It was issued at the time by 1,700 scientists, including more than half of the Nobel Prize winners in science at the time. Now, that was extraordinary, considering this was just before the advent of email to have so many scientists endorsing one paper. And they told us we were on a collision course with the biosphere, and they told us everything we needed to do to put it right. 25 years later on, in 2017, there was the World Scientists Warning to Humanity, a second notice. Now, this was issued by 15,500 scientists at the time, and is currently the most endorsed and the greatest scientist warning of all time. On the 5th of November 2019, at the same time as President Trump was offering to take America out of the Paris Accord, the world scientists issued their warning of a climate emergency. And when that came out, that was issued by 11,500 scientists. So these are vast numbers of scientists that are influencing what we're doing, and these are topping off from the IPCC reports and the data that might be in those. Now, for me, that's even part of a personal journey. In June 2019, when I started to become more aware of what was going on in the climate, and I apologize to all those who've been taking action, those at the conference and everywhere else in the world for many years beforehand, as I wish I had come to action earlier. But having read the Scientists' Warning to Humanity, a second notice, and then the first notice and a number of other documents, I had an ecological conversion. So I woke up from a nightmare, and in my nightmare, my children, who are currently now 12 and 14, who at the time would have been 10 and 12, are about 30. And they're arriving back to my semi-detached house in comfortable Buckinghamshire, and they're dropping off as they open the door, they're dropping off their army bags as they come into the hall. And they're all dressed in their army khakis. And they come in to find me having a coffee in the living room of our house. When they get there, they say to me that they've just come back from Europe, where they've been shooting people to stop them getting the drinking water. They tell me that they're doing that to ensure that those of us in Britain are able to maintain our luxury lifestyle and to get all the drinking water, and they're depriving other people from having it. But they also tell me that they're being shot at. And the only reason that they have not been injured and hurt is because they're wearing flak jackets and they've got bigger guns than the poor people who are trying to get the water from them. Now, that was a nightmare. And when I woke up from it, I was hearing them saying to me, "And you knew about this, didn't you, Papa, 20 years ago? And what did you do about it?" And as I wake up, I've got tears streaming down my face as I wake up, and I'm mouthing the words, "But I had a mortgage, and I had a job, and I had to look after you." But when my feet touched the ground, I realized that wasn't enough. And what we all need you to do, particularly those of us at Scientists Warning, and particularly the authors of the new paper, is we need everybody to come to action. And that's particularly the leaders. And that's leaders at every single level. Whether you're a leader in your household, your community, your parish, your city, your region, you're a national government leader, or you're a leader at COP26 and an international leader. We need you to come to action. And the new World Scientists Warning into Action paper is telling you to do that. It summarizes a lot of the top-line science, but it's also about providing solutions for leaders taking action at every single level. Now, the paper came out about a week ago. It was open for signatures already by scientists. And we would ask every scientist in the world who's hearing this, please to come to our website and to sign the paper. Our website can be found at www.planetincrisis.com. That's planetincrisis.com. And when you come in, you can sign the paper and endorse it. There's already over 2,000 scientists who signed it. There's already more than 100 countries are represented, and scientists are signing at something like 100 to 150 a day at the moment. Please come and endorse it. Now, in order to introduce the warning properly, we actually have one of the two lead authors of the warning. That's Professor Phoebe Barnard, who is going to do a very, very short video and an explanation. She actually co-authored the warning with 15 other scientists and experts, of which Daphne Wisham, who is with us, is one, but the other lead author was Professor Bill Mumau. So now let's see what Phoebe has to say to us.
In the movements. And more importantly, I have the knowledge, and we have the knowledge that change is in fact possible. That it is in fact possible to live and thrive across continents, to regain our empathy. And what we need, except that hope, that knowledge, is the courage to fight for those changes that we want to see in the world, because if it's not us, then this won't happen. And after all, I wonder what should ever stop us. I dream of this world where we start looking each other into the eyes. I dream of
Okay, I'm sorry, we seem to have got a technical problem on our film, so we haven't had really the introduction from Professor Phoebe Barnard. So just to do a little bit more introduction then, and then I'll hand over to Daphne Wisham, actually one of the co-authors of the paper. So the paper sets out to talk, as we said, to leaders at all levels. But like previous scientists' warnings, it also breaks down the areas of stresses for the world into 6 main areas. So that's nature, food, population, short-lived pollutants, energy, and economy. And experts, scientists and other experts write on these areas, telling us what we really have to do. So now, after we haven't had Phoebe, unfortunately, to do the introduction, so Daphne, I'd be pleased if you'd now like to talk about the paper.
Yes, so thank you for having me here. My name is Daphne Wisham. I'm the CEO of Methane Action. And Methane Action is a unique nonprofit. Our goal is to identify solutions that can rapidly reduce methane concentrations in the atmosphere to pre-industrial levels and ensure their implementation for the benefit of present and future generations. I got started on this journey about 30 years ago. I grew up in India, and I went back to see what was happening with World Bank financing of fossil fuel projects in India. And I was shocked to see something sort of straight out of your nightmare. A boy trying to get a bit of fresh water from the banks of a river that was blackened by coal-fired power plant ash that was dumped directly into the river. And this was financed with our tax dollars in the US through the World Bank. And as a result of that, seeing that tragic vision of a child just trying to get a fresh cup of water with his hands because the wells had all run dry, I went back to Washington and took on the World Bank and launched a global campaign to try to get the World Bank and all the other development banks out of fossil fuels. It took about 20 years, but we did finally succeed in getting the bank to pledge to get out of most fossil fuels. And at this conference, I've heard that world leaders are calling on all of the development banks to get out of coal. Of course, they should get out of all fossil fuels immediately. But clearly, moving away from fossil fuels is not enough, because today we have a staggering quantity of greenhouse gas emissions in the Earth's atmosphere. We've all heard about carbon dioxide. We know that we're roughly at about 420 parts per million if you're just looking at CO2. But if you look at CO2 equivalent and you include methane, we're already over 500 parts per million CO2 equivalent. And methane levels are rising even more rapidly than CO2. Now, at this conference, just yesterday, we had world leaders, over 100 countries from around the world, claim that they are going to cut their emissions by 30% below 2020 levels by 2030. And of course, there was an awful lot of support for that, as there should be. However, that will not get us anywhere near the 1.5 degree Celsius target that we have all set at Paris. And in fact, the UN says we need to cut by at least 45%
below 2020 levels by 2030, an additional 50% more than what's on the table right now. And of course, these are all pledges. And we know that pledges are different than actual mandates. So enter the issue of methane removal. Well, what is methane removal? Unlike CO2, it is something that is not removed and stored somewhere. Is actually enhanced atmospheric methane oxidation. Methane is naturally oxidized in the atmosphere. And one of the reasons that we need to invest in enhanced atmospheric methane oxidation, or methane removal for short, is because natural sources of methane are rising. And we're going to be hearing from Peter Wadhams shortly about that. It's alarming. It's something I heard about in Kyoto, and I thought it was a nightmare scenario that would never occur, that we would see permafrost melting and methane seeping up from shallow waters in the Arctic. That is happening now. We are also seeing methane being released from wetlands as the planet warms. So effectively what we have now is warming, feeding, warming. And the only way out of this scenario, in addition to massive cuts, and some suggest that we can't get further than 50% cuts in methane emissions, just simply because we can't cut agricultural emissions further than a certain amount. It's just not feasible. We can't get it to zero. Fossil fuel emissions we can cut dramatically, but ag emissions, rice paddy emissions, and so on, those are very difficult to get down to zero. So we do need methane removal. We have an op-ed in today's Washington Post. We have a good article in the Science magazine today. You can read more about it there, and I will turn it over to the next speaker, unless you'd like me to say anything else.
Great, thank you very much, Daphne. And Peter, we wanted to bring you into this within the World Scientists' Warnings into Action paper. And just a quote from it, it's saying, "We've already crossed the tipping point of Arctic sea ice loss. We're approaching another caused by dramatic Arctic warming with potentially catastrophic effect, coming from the rapid mobilization of methane trapped in the permafrost into the atmosphere on a decadal basis." I wonder if you might give us an impression of really what the danger is we're facing.
Yes, there's a very specific threat to add to all the other threats, which is that the world's largest concentration of methane, natural concentration of methane, is in the sediments underneath the Arctic shelves, the Arctic continental shelves, that is shallow water in the Arctic Ocean. And these have been studied for many years by a Russian group who really has seen that each year a larger and larger quantity of methane comes out of the seabed and reaches the sea surface because the water is very shallow. And this process happens because what we used to have in the Arctic was a protective layer of permafrost on the seabed that stopped the methane that's in the sediments from coming out into the atmosphere. But this protective layer has been disappearing because the ice itself disappears in the summer, allowing the water to warm up. And as the water warms up, the layer of the top of the sediments melts, and then that releases the sediments, and the sediments turn into gas, and the gas comes out of the surface because it doesn't have time to dissolve on its way up. So this is a direct threat to, in fact, an existential threat, because if at the moment it happens in a controlled way, or not controlled by anybody, but it's a limited amount of gas coming out per year. But if this protective layer entirely disappears, then we'll get a huge methane outbreak or methane burst, and this could give a sudden warming, step change warming of global temperatures, which we'd estimated at 0.6 of a degree, but more recently some scientists in California have upped that to about 1.2 degrees. So we could get a 1.2 degree global warming suddenly happening from a methane burst. And that methane burst was estimated as only being 8% of the sediments. So if if more methane comes out than an 8% of what's in the sediments, the temperature will be rising even more. So it's a tremendous threat, which has been greatly underestimated, largely by IPCC. But we need to really be aware of it, and we need to try to find ways of getting rid of methane on an emergency basis. How do we firefight a methane outbreak? So this is just one of the threats that faces us.
And Peter, to put us completely in the picture, we're talking about just the Siberian ice shelf. Are there other ice shelves where this may happen as well? And could they have the same effect coming from those ice shelves? Could it be multiplied?
Yes, all the work that's been done has been done on the Siberian Sea, and just happened to be where the Russian ships have gone. But there's the Kara Sea, the Laptev Sea, the Barents Sea. There are 3 or 4 other seas around the shallow waters of Siberia, which exert the same threat. And in fact, it's thought that the Laptev Sea might have more methane in the sediments than even the Siberian Sea. So we can multiply everything by at least 4.
Right, so we're talking about potentially 4 times the amount of methane, and one of the studies was suggesting that it could be as much as a 1.2 degree of rising on its own.
Yes.
Okay, completely catastrophic. And now I think, just thinking in the paper, because the paper was very much trying to look at action that's needed in many of these areas. And we are staying to some extent on methane and pollutants today because we have experts here from that area. And later on in the week, we'll be approaching other areas. I think now if we talk a bit, Daphne, about leaders and what they need to do, and maybe there are things they can do in terms of subsidies and things they can do in terms of fees or taxes. What could be done practically for leaders? And if you don't mind thinking of starting, let's say, at national levels or international agreements, coming down a little bit, then looking at regional leaders, so counties, etc., and then maybe even local community leaders.
Yes, well, fortunately, we've got the wind at our backs in the United States. I can't speak for other countries, but it does seem that Biden has woken up to the methane crisis, and he has been pushing his Environmental Protection Agency to strengthen regulations governing leaks from oil and gas infrastructure. However, he has yet to tackle the agricultural sector, and that is, I'm sure, a political hot potato that very few people want to touch. So this is a matter that potentially needs to be taken up at an individual level, or perhaps at a local and state level. I've seen the potential for really bold action to be taken at the local level. For example, in Portland, Oregon, we passed the strongest ordinance in the country calling for an end to all new fossil fuel infrastructure. And that inspired a number of other cities and counties to do the same. The same thing could be done in terms of passing restrictions on all new gas infrastructure, as New York State is proposing to do. We need to ensure that whatever food products that we consume, we need to be thinking about the impact on the global climate. And of course, ruminants are a major source of methane. And so moving away from dairy and meat is a very important step that especially people in the global north need to consider. The cuts that I mentioned earlier of 30%, these are pledges. Now we've seen a lot of pledges at these forums, pledges of $100 billion in support for developing countries. These pledges often go unmet. So how do you take a pledge and turn it into a promise? How do you turn it into a regulation? That really is up to people at the state and local level to engage. And we need to up the pledge from 30%, as I said, to 45%. In terms of other ways in which people can support the initiative that we're working on at Methane Action, you know, honestly, the scientists that I'm working with, and they include people like Peter Wadhams and folks that are doing this out of a very altruistic perspective, they cannot get the funding to work on methane removal. There is very little awareness of the potential for methane removal to rapidly potentially roll back climate forcing by as much as 15 or more 15 or more years of climate forcing. So we could actually, if we succeed in cutting atmospheric methane levels in half, which is the goal of Methane Action, to pre-industrial levels, we could actually shave off a half of a degree, and we could potentially roll back climate forcing by 15 years or more. So this is both the hazard that we face, which is astronomically rising methane levels in the atmosphere, and the opportunity, which is that methane emissions restrictions plus methane removal has the potential to shave peak temperatures, to avoid the cataclysm that Peter, or at least hopefully avoid the cataclysm that Peter discussed just a minute ago, and buy us that absolutely essential time to do all the other things that we desperately need to do to bring down global temperatures.
Thank you, Daphne. So David King is often talking about trying to get methane out of the atmosphere very, very fast, as well as in reducing it, often talking about technological ways of doing that. The paper mentions both technological and natural ways. I wonder if you might be able to suggest in both cases something that might be able to be done both technologically, anything that's happening now, and maybe a natural way as well.
Well, all of the so-called, what you've distinguished between natural and technological, and I would say that all of the approaches that we are looking at are merely trying to accelerate what happens naturally, which is methane breaks down into CO2 and water naturally. It oxidizes in the atmosphere and also with methanogens in the soil. However, the quantity of methane that's being released into the atmosphere has not been broken down. It's, you can think of it as a bathtub that is overflowing. We need to open the drain wider. We need to enhance the atmospheric sinks for methane. And that is what the scientists that I'm working with from Stanford, the University of Copenhagen, and elsewhere are working on. One mimics a process that happens naturally when the iron-rich dust, which you can find all over the planet, but especially in the Sahara, it's red iron-rich dust, blows over the Atlantic, and you have a combination of iron and sea salt spray and sunshine, and that actually oxidizes the methane. So the scientists at the University of Copenhagen are looking into how can we enhance that process, how can we speed it up, and if we succeed, how can we roll back climate forcing as I've suggested. Now, of course, what we want to see is this process must be governed and must not be misused in any way to, for example, allow industry to continue with business as usual. We know that that must come to an end. And it's one reason why at Methane Action, we have released a declaration on reducing atmospheric methane, which you can find on our website. It has been signed and endorsed by the likes of Michael Mann, Gus Speth, Dinah Baer, who worked at the White House under both Republican and Democratic presidents. You could see all of the signatories on our website, as well as a leader of a group called Snow Change, which is working with indigenous peoples in the Arctic. They are seeing firsthand the evidence of methane being released from the permafrost, and they are just as alarmed as we are. And they would like to see an agreement scaled up to withdraw methane from the atmosphere, while we also focus on reducing methane emissions at their sources.
Great, thank you. I think, Peter, we'll bring you into the conversation. Maybe you have some thoughts on technical fixes to the methane problem. And I'd also like to, if you could just go one beyond that as well. Do we currently have adequate monitoring for methane emissions, and what should we be changing?
Well, technical methods, I think one of the most promising ones is the one that Daphne's talked about, which is to take the methane and reduce and act on it with ferric chloride, which reacts with methane, and you can have an aerosol of iron salt, ferric chloride, and that if you blow that over a methane-rich emission, it will actually get rid of it. So hopefully that's the best way around so far, and certainly it's good that there is a technique that will get rid of methane, because until recently there wasn't. In terms of other threats, and I think how do we control them? One of the worst things is the increasing amount of methane being seen coming out of the Siberia. We've already got still the sources of methane that are our own, leakage from pipelines and oil and gas processes. But the worrying thing now is that as permafrost melts throughout the Arctic, the amount of methane that is being generated by that and lost into the atmosphere is going up. And so we're seeing phenomena like these recent explosions where methane blows up underground. And this is, although these are not populated areas, at the same time it demonstrates the potential for damage in the world that methane has.
I would just add that it was indigenous peoples in the Arctic that discovered those craters that and alerted the scientists to the craters being these explosive craters that Peter's talking about.
Thank you. And in fact, one of the authors, somebody that Peter knows well, Professor Igor Samilitov, has been saying that in his recent expeditions out into the Arctic Sea, that they've been seeing massively increasing plumes of methane coming up, and they're showing it from year on year, they're increasing. So the danger is actually here now, and we can't keep waiting to sort it out. Just coming back, though, to one of the things in the paper, actually, then, as our last question. It's a finance day today at COP26, and the paper talks about taking subsidies away from large methane-producing meat and dairy firms, as well as taking away fossil fuel subsidies, and then imposing fees onto methane producers. Could you just give us 1 minute suggesting how that might happen?
Well, right now, the U.S. Congress is actually proposing a $900 per ton fee on methane to be imposed starting in 2023, going up to $1,500 a ton, I believe, by 2025. It's not clear, given the election results in Virginia, whether or not that will survive and make it into the Senate. But that gives you a sense of the scale of both of interest in the House and the Senate in tackling this methane issue, in creating punitive fees. And in addition, the EPA is looking into how can we take some of that money and use it to reduce legacy, what they call legacy methane emissions from the atmosphere, to invest in methane removal. The border carbon adjustment that the EU has in place, I think, is a very powerful tool that could be used to address methane leaks. And potentially the US, if they decide to get on board a border carbon adjustment, that could be another way of handling people that are allowing, industries that are allowing methane to be released indiscriminately. We do have methane satellites that are being launched that will help us track point sources of release of methane on a larger scale, so that we can more readily monitor them and ideally suppress the methane that's being released.
Great. Thank you very much, Daphne. I think as we're coming to the end now, just as another statement at the end of what we're talking about, what we're looking at with methane and short-lived pollutants is we're looking at massive potential problem. So we're looking at something where in one set of methane release, we could see a global temperature rise of 1.2 degrees. Is that a risk worth taking? And that's only one of the ice shelves that are out there. It's an absolutely massive risk. And all of the measures that are being put in place are not being put in place quick enough. What we really need to solve methane, and what the World Scientists' Warnings into Action paper is calling for, is leadership. And leadership is something that Scientists Warning Europe has been working on exclusively at the moment. Apart from the paper that we've been working with a group of scientists around the world to create, we've also been working with a group of scientists, and we issued a letter to Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Prime Minister Mario Draghi demanding they step up and take real leadership. What the world needs now is some countries to break from the front, to go out and take some much more extreme and required measures to save our future and save the futures of our children. So now we need real leadership, and that's what the paper and everything else we've been doing has been working on. In addition to the paper, we are bringing out a film made by the Jonathan Clay, the director of the last David Attenborough film on Netflix. That film we're aiming to bring out onto YouTube before the end of COP, addressing leaders and scientists around the world to come to action. So I would ask now to say thank you very much to Daphne Wisham. Thank you very much to Professor Peter Wadhams. And just repeat to all scientists, social scientists, political scientists, engineers and others, please sign our paper. Come to our website, look at the paper and sign up to the 4th Great World Scientists Warning. And that's at planetincrisis.com. Thank you, everybody.
Does help if I unmute it, doesn't it? Right, all of you see, there you go. There's the press conference there. They're all finishing up now. I don't think we've got any sound on there. So unmute the mic. Well, they're all obviously having their chat. I'll let them do their thing. Hopefully you, I could see a couple of people on the chat, or at least 3 of you, putting a few questions out there that you just, come on guys, these are scientists, let's be nice. So Soul Train says, I'm clapping for Ed Gemmell. What have we got there? What else we've got? Fahim, thank you very much. Yes, I am a legend, apparently. I don't think my kids think that. What else we've got? You said, I enjoyed our chat, Ed. There you go. So, Soul Train, what was your favourite topic? What, me? Which conversation? The one that was happening at COP26 or the one that you were having in the chat? But as you can see, they've got to sort out, got people asking questions as well. So any decent questions that you want to ask Ed or any of the people who was on that panel, please let us know. So, Playboy, mine was climate change. Yes, well, I think we'll talk about the methane. I mean, it's very interesting. Definitely said about the methane, how like agriculture, how that affects. There's a mass load of food production, and it causes a lot of problems with methane. Also pollutes the waters, especially with the chemicals. Cut down the rainforest, that also happens. But I am sure you were listening and understood all that as well. What is this about the Midwest? All right, I'll ask her. Not a problem. Not so too. Now, interesting that you've put that Soul Train. Excuse me. Now 5G he wants stopped. He wants it stopped right away. He this is last interview that we did. He was very quick on that. I was saying that about vaccines, but he was also saying that about 5G. So, especially about the bee corridor, there is electromagnetic issues that causes bees unable to, for instance, deal with this magnet and everything. So what I've been reading up about. So yeah, it's killing off the species of bees, 5G, and also insects as well. So he wants that gone, I believe. I'll ask him about that when he comes back with Will. As you can see, they're currently dealing with people asking the questions, coming up to him afterwards. Now, I'll tell you something about this room and about the way they move it. It's got to be like a 15-minute movement. So they will be asked to move and they'll be straight back out here in a moment. And what other questions? Am I the bee's knees? I don't know, FBL. I don't think I am. FBL. Fahim, I don't think I am. But yeah, 5G. Well, what do you think about 5G? I mean, it's faster internet. Don't get me wrong. There's literally, we all want that. I mean, I tested it earlier. I think I've got 100 gig or something on my cell phone, as they say in America. Did Ed vote Conservative? I don't know, actually. That's a good question. Do you like that? I will ask him. But what does it matter who he votes for? What do you mean by that for him? 5G is mild. Oh, mid. 5G is mid. What's that? I thought you said mild then. Loads of issues with 5G, apparently. But Soul Train said, I think we should stay with 4G for health of the world. There you go. In your honest opinion, definitely right. They haven't even sorted out 4G yet for the 100% of the population, nor with the 3G. So They push forward for the Internet of Things for 5G, and I think the wonders of what it can do is the more things that I think why they push more 5G, and also the government gets a lot of money from it as well. Let's see if there's a chat. Oh, seeing what Pete's saying to somebody. Can't really make that out, but we'll just mute that for the moment anyway. Yeah, again, I think you're right there, Soul Train. I'm even going to put it up on the feed. Look, I think we should stay with 4G for the health of the world. Yeah, interesting question. Is 4G good? I mean, or is it not? 5G's like, I mean, 5G's about the hertz, using it in the military apparently, from what I've read. So, yeah, let's 4G. I think it does very well if it can actually be picked up. I mean, I know with the O2 network, I've had massive issues with it. Now using Vodafone in the E for my broadcasts. I've got a backbone of O2 though, and it does keep on timing out. So if they can't even sort out the 4G, why are we pushing forward with 5G? But like I say, Internet of Things is what it's all about. There's things like your fridge freezer, your microwave, your turning on your TVs, and God knows what else you'll all be able to do. And they can also monitor. So if your fridge is running low on stock, they can automatically update it. If it needs a service, if it's gone down, if there's a problem, the Internet of Things is all about the fourth industrial revolution. If you've not heard about the fourth industrial revolution, look it up. Look it up. It is a real thing. It's gone through Parliament. They've chatted about it, and there's also a document. Look at the Commons Library. Can't suggest that enough. Look at the Commons Library. That's everything that's coming into government or what they need to research. All the papers that are in that you see these MPs reading. The Commons Library. I've been having in any spare time, which is not much, which means nothing. I've been investigating quite a lot of this stuff, and it's where they get all their facts and figures. There is an independent load of people who do a lot of research. It's called the Commons Library. They then put forward a fact paper for said MPs or for all MPs. It's up to them if they want to read it. And in there, they break down financials. They look at resource. They look at everything, and it's supposed to be impartial, not one-sided. It's supposed to be, there we go. There's all the information. You're the MPs. You decide in the Commons what to do. So there we go. So let's down with Boris, says Fahim. Okay. Now interesting question here. Sorry, let's move on to Playboy Carty. Enjoyer. Right. Does Ed have a TikTok? He should spread these messages faster. He does have a TikTok. I'll tell you that now. I don't know what his TikTok is. Actually, see what he's. Oh, Mike's still too far away. Can't really hear what's going on there. I'll still mute it. There you go. Behind the scenes, you see, all gets crowded. People coming up. You think it all just finishes, but actually, people come up and ask questions. Yeah, he does have TikTok. We were talking about this yesterday, me and Ed, in regards to like, do I want a TikTok? Well, I'm already on a few platforms, and the more platforms you move on to, the more you've got to update. So I find it quite a lot. And TikTok, I don't know. Do you think I'll be good on TikTok? But he has got TikTok. It's a lot of work that he's doing, a lot of stuff. He does do some good stuff that he did. Would you like to, actually, here we go. Would you like to see a lot more of him? Actually, do me a favor out there. See if you can find him on TikTok right now if you've got a TikTok account. And then let's put it in the chat and I'll bring it up. And then everybody else can see what he's on TikTok before he gets back. See if we can find it before he comes back. Look, you can see. Oh, Will and Ed are obviously talking there. Oh, hi. Hello. You're going to say that. What else can I say? Also, Ho is a big Gemmell fan. We know that because you've obviously wrote before in previous interview. So is there any of you coming to the COP26 as well? There's a lot going on in the next, 9 days left, I think. Or 8, 9. I think Saturday or Sunday is the best day as well. There's nothing going on there. But it is on all week, basically. So I think they're leaving now. Oh, yep, here they come. Let's see if Will follows them through and then carry on. What we got? Right, here's a question. Can you explain what COP26 is, please? I wish I could. I thought it was in regards to. Now look, it might be happening behind closed doors anyway, but I thought it was going to be, like at Star Wars, when they have that. Was it Queen Adala or whatever? You see her, and the councillors all round, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to do this, going to do that." We want peace, we want this. It's not like that. So I was quite surprised. Again, I wasn't here on Monday. I got here on Tuesday. But apparently, this is all about getting other countries to agree to climate change, agree to reducing their emissions, I believe. But behind me, through those doors, is a load of countries saying what they're going to do to reduce effects to the climate. And they're obviously selling ideas and companies within their country providing the technology or the idea and need backing. What I would like to see is, for instance, government to own the electrical and gas distribution and no more privateering out of it, because gas and electricity is going up by 50% in the next few days, if not. It depends on when you renew your gas and electricity. I hope I'm not boring you all here with this. And that's just, we've got corporates involved in that, and I'm more worried because a lot of people are going to move to electric cars, so obviously electricity. Government's going to lose more on petrol subsidies or petrol taxes, and they're now going to put that on electricity, which means people who don't have much money, especially elderly as well, and people on benefit, are going to find it harder, because let's just say it costs you 25p to, let's just say 50p to watch the TV for an hour. It's now going to cost you 75p. So people are going to actually make decisions on whether or not they can do certain things, like, for instance, heating when it comes to old people, even though that uses gas. But I think things like, if they really want to do something, this is what COP26 should be about. Is about how to improve the population of humanity's way and push forward. It's great that they're dealing with tax. They're dealing with the ideas of tech. We all love it, but tech's expensive. People on the breadline. What about free electricity? Let's get free electricity, actually. There is an idea I'm playing with, which is the LEDs. You can use LEDs to create electricity. Right. Now, we have got a little bit of an issue, is the roaming camera that Will was using has actually died, run out of battery. We did fully charge it before we went live, so I don't think we'll be able to. But we might see if we can get Ed here quickly as he comes back and have a chat. If not, we will go through the comments and we will get him to answer them anyway later. What we got here as well, everyone, can we move on, matey? Right, yeah, okay, I'll move on. HS2, I don't think he agrees with it either. But that is a really good question. Free electricity is a great idea. Yes, there you go. Play around with the LED idea. If you reverse LEDs, you can create power. There's some videos out there. Watch them. Very interesting. Free electricity, why not? I mean, we're using it enough. There's loads of turbines out there and stuff, and an interesting question I had with Ed yesterday was in regards to free electricity, as he calls it. Solar panels, wind farms, and I'm like, yeah, it's free for the electricity company once they build it, but it's not free to the people. So more of a wholesale state-run, which is, can't say this enough. Government means state-run, which means run for the people. Yeah, the people pay for it, and the people. That's why you have a government. That's why you have state-run. What's the word? State-run services, like the train. Trains should not be privatised. It should. I mean, I know there was problems with it before, but you know, I used to work in the NHS, and I can tell you now, you know, the way the government was pushing down to the NHS hospital I worked at was unbelievable. I tried to do what I could. And I think I need to step up a level, get up there to sort that issues out. Right, what else have we got in these comments? Right, so we got Fahim saying, tell Ed to meet up with Ian Moore. He's a good climate change blogger. Right, yeah, we'll do. Hey boy, I'm not going to put your question up on the screen. Free Bill Cosby. Free R. Kelly. Okay, well, we're not going to. Look, it's been great, and glad to see you all have enjoyed yourselves on this chat as well. I think Ed's going to be tied up back there for a little while, and obviously the phone's died. So what we're going to do is see if we can come back a little bit later. And yes, thanks for watching, and we'll catch up with you in the next stream.